In today's video, we're diving into an exciting yet somewhat alarming topic. We're well into the winter season, and weather models are indicating that a massive snowstorm might be on the horizon. But this isn't just any ordinary cold spell. Its effects are predicted to span from the eastern United States all the way down to southern regions of South Carolina and Georgia. In recent days, the East Coast has already been experiencing a bone-chilling cold wave that has caught everyone's attention. However, experts warn that this is just the beginning. The freezing temperatures are expected to intensify in the coming days, and this looming snowstorm could bring life to a standstill in many areas. What makes this winter different from others? In recent years, some regions have seen relatively mild winters, but this year's outlook is shaping up to be very different. Meteorologists suggest that sudden atmospheric changes and ocean temperature shifts might be triggering such extreme weather events. This means heavy snowfalls, frigid cold, and strong winds could combine to create one of the harshest winters we've faced in years. The bottom line is that the weather pattern is changing dramatically as we move through this week and into next week. I believe we're going to see some very cold air across the eastern two-thirds of the country, essentially from the Rockies eastward. We'll dive into that specifically in this extra video tonight as we track the latest data. I want to explain why you shouldn't rely entirely on deterministic models being shared right now. Models aren't the ultimate answer, and I'll show you why in this video. We're far too early in the timeline to have a definitive solution. Looking down from the North Pole, I've marked an X here to show where the energy or wave in the upper atmosphere is located. This will eventually form our storm, the first one we're watching heading into this upcoming weekend. Beyond that, come on, we're still dealing with upstream energy across Asia that has to traverse the entire planet. How will it align for snow in your small city in the South, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, Midwest, or Central Plains? The bottom line is, I don't know. There's no way to give a definitive yes or no, but it's hard to ignore the evidence of what's happening in the atmosphere. We're heading into a highly amplified pattern next week. Take a look at this energy we're tracking into Wednesday. By the end of the week, things get really interesting for forecasting model guidance. Every day, a couple of times a day, weather balloons are launched across North America. These balloons measure atmospheric pressure, wind, dew point, and other variables. This data feeds into numerical weather prediction models, providing guidance. There's a lot of model data out there. In this particular run, we're looking at the European model. All the models are showing a highly amplified pattern. When I say amplified, here's what I mean. We've gone from a fairly west to east flow to a buckling pattern. There's a ridge building over Alaska, a trough digging into the continental US, a huge ridge over Greenland, and a trough forming in Europe. This setup often brings cold weather to both Europe and the United States simultaneously, and that's what we're seeing as we move into next week. The big question is, will this amplification lead to a storm? Let's examine some guidance. Cold air is building down from the North Pole, and the models have been consistent with this over the past few days. Watch how a piece of this polar air, or polar vortex if you will, breaks off as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. It moves across the Great Lakes, straight into the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, even reaching Texas. This data represents air temperatures at about 850 millibars, a level in the atmosphere unaffected by surface warming or cooling. This gives us a clearer picture of the cold air. As we move into next week, it appears more cold air could be on the way. However, everything depends on what happens this week. It's like the butterfly effect. Small changes now can lead to significant impacts later. The same principle applies to this weekend's storm. What happens next week will be influenced not only by conditions here, but also by what's happening in the Pacific. The models might not be picking up on subtle details. When looking this far ahead, I like to examine ensemble data. Here's where we see the best chance for snow from the next system. From Montana into the Midwest, the probability of snowfall greater than 6 inches is growing, particularly across Iowa and parts of Nebraska. Some of this snow will likely fall over the weekend. Over the next couple of days, we'll continue to see lake effect snow around the Great Lakes. Meanwhile, snow will persist across the Colorado Rockies and the mountains of Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho. In this video, we're focusing on the potential for a weekend storm that could impact next week. Let's take a closer look at the snow probabilities. There's a significant chance of more than 6 inches of snow across the central US, including South Dakota and North Dakota, with the system sliding southward. However, one concern is the potential for ice on the southern side of this storm, which could reduce overall snow totals. So don't rely on any exact solution just yet. I certainly am not. I'll show you a few operational model runs. Take this information and interpret it as you will. I feel confident about the forecast for the next couple of days. A low-pressure system will move into the northeast, and there's a full forecast available on my channel if you want all the details. For now, I'll quickly highlight the operational differences for our potential winter storm heading into next weekend. The system arrives on the west coast by Friday. As we sample the atmosphere with weather balloons launched across the west, the models will have more data to work with. Remember, these balloons are only launched from specific locations, so the models have to interpolate what's happening between those points. It's remarkable that models can achieve this level of accuracy, but it's also why long-range predictions can be so unreliable. When we start to see consensus among the models, like the idea of a system moving from the central US to the East Coast, it's worth paying attention. Both the GFS and European models show this system. For example, the European model this afternoon shows a mix of precipitation. This makes sense, given the high-pressure system to the north, which is pushing cold air south. On the northern side of the low, wherever it tracks, we're likely to see a heavy band of snow. This setup resembles a Miller B storm. The low initially tracks near the Ohio River. Once it reaches Pennsylvania, it transfers energy to the coast, forming a coastal low. This process dynamically cools the atmosphere, leading to snow in areas that may initially see mixed precipitation, such as southeast Pennsylvania and coastal regions. Once the system moves out, northwest winds bring in cold air, ending the event. The Climate Prediction Center seems spot on in forecasting widespread cold weather across the east. The key question is whether anything significant develops along the Gulf Coast. I previously showed energy for the first storm located just east of Japan. Where will all these atmospheric players be in a week, or even 8 to 9 days? Honestly, your guess is as good as mine, and that's why the models show so much variability. For example, today's European model downplayed the storm compared to yesterday, which hinted at coastal development. On the other hand, the GFS went all in, suggesting a massive snowstorm next week. The GFS shows the storm this weekend, bringing snow to the northern plains, central US, and areas like Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. It also depicts the low transitioning to the coast in the northeast, which aligns with typical storm dynamics. However, this morning's GFS run seemed like an outlier. It showed extreme snowfall potential, which isn't supported by the latest guidance. The most recent data suggests the system may shift further east, suppressing its impact. While this is just one possibility, there's still an outside chance of a significant snowstorm late next week. For now, we're confident about the first storm and the subsequent cold weather. The key is to monitor what happens along the western edge of the boundary, as that could determine the storm's evolution. Here's a wider view of snowfall probabilities over the next week. Areas with a better than 50% chance of 3 or more inches of snow are highlighted through Monday. As we head into the Sunday timeframe, Arctic air will continue to plunge southward. Dew points will tap into the moist sector with a negatively tilted trough, putting areas across East Texas at risk for severe storms. This risk extends into the afternoon and evening for East Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. By then, we'll see significant water vapor returning, accompanied by a low-pressure center highlighted in the region. This setup will lead to a winter storm with heavier snowfall to the north and severe weather, including large hail, damaging winds, and tornado activity, likely across the Dixie Valley region on Sunday into Monday. By Sunday afternoon, Arctic air advancing southward will bring significant cold air, indicated by the increasing pink on weather maps over British Columbia and areas of Montana. Meanwhile, areas further south will remain in the warm sector, awaiting the arrival of Arctic air. Heavier snow will begin developing between January 4th and 7th. Significant snowfall is expected across Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, spreading north of the low-pressure system into Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, the Mid-Atlantic, and the Northeast. On Sunday, January the 5th, severe weather is expected in East Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, which appear to be in the bullseye for a severe weather outbreak. To the north, a sharp gradient will create a battle zone with an overrunning setup, potentially leading to ice storms across Missouri and Illinois. Heavier snowfall will occur in northern Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. As we move into Monday, the system's backside will bring heavy snow, with snowfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour in some areas. Arctic air will drive snow ratios higher, likely around 115 instead of the standard 110, resulting in lighter, fluffier snow. Heavy rain and severe storms will impact areas further south, including Georgia and the Carolinas, while the battle zone remains in the central regions. Snowfall will be heaviest to the north, extending into Pennsylvania and the Mid-Atlantic by Monday, January 6th. By January 7th, wraparound moisture will persist in the Ohio Valley, spreading into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as the low-pressure center continues to move northeastward. Following this system, another wave of Arctic air is expected. The cold air will arrive in 3 waves: the initial plunge on January 5th, a reload on January 6th, 7th, and a third surge on January 8th, 10th. These waves will bring bitterly cold anomalies further south, reaching Mexico by the 10th. The active subtropical jet stream will likely interact with the Arctic air, creating an overrunning setup that could bring snowfall further south than usual. Between now and January 7th, heavy snow swells are likely, with ratios of 1:15 due to the Arctic air. Snowfall totals of 6-12 inches, and in some areas 18 inches, are possible. Missouri, northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and even parts of New Jersey could see significant snowfall. As we move into January 8th, and guys, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. See you in the next video.